Listen, this is Tommy Hilkin along with Brian Flanagan. Welcome, everyone. Selling for serious salespeople. One of my favorite things to talk about, and I always get to talk to it with Brian throughout the years, sharing ideas, what we're going to do here on this little podcast. And it's going to be little, short, brief, but what we love. And, you know, I was thinking about it, Brian, the little nuggets that we receive in life, right? That the ones that we can just hang on to. So many life-changing nuggets that have been in my world. And that's what I think we're going to do with our podcast. That's our intention. Drop a couple nuggets out there and see if we can help somebody become better at the sales profession. But before we go further, pretty fascinating. Matsuyama won the Masters yesterday. And
I think he led from Thursday on.
You know what? And you want to talk about amazing. The kid started 10 years ago with no idea what he was going to do. Professional golf wanted to bring it worldwide, and he signed up and he was brought in as a teen. And 10 years later, he won the Masters.
Yep.
You and I both know the power of storytelling. You know, this guy has some story to tell the rest of his life.
Hey, that's right. For here on out, he'll be a green jacket winner.
Wow.
Can't take that away from you.
You know, you talk about a purpose, right, with vision and goals. You know, most people would quit, but took him 10 years. 10 years. Now, don't get me wrong. There's many people who go a lifetime without achieving something like that, but still, to hang in there 10 years. And I like what he had to say. He said he's going to be, you know, he can influence the rest of his country. You know, how powerful is that? That's some cool stuff, man. I got to tell you.
Well, we both know the greatest motivator is being involved with something greater than yourself.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. And you know, and that's what I really enjoyed. He didn't say, look at me. You know, he was full of humility and said, look what I could do for my country. So good.
Let me hitchhike on that. Last night, I had the opportunity to hear Tim Tebow speak.
Nice.
And he was being honored by our friend, mentor, Zig Ziglar Servant Leadership Award here in Dallas.
Beautiful.
And Tom Ziglar introduced him and said that his father, Zig, always thought leadership had two qualities. And the two qualities were a little different than what we hear. The qualities were confidence and humility.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim Tebow exhibits that, obviously. But also, if you think about salespeople, the ones that have an ego drive to win, to succeed, to perform, but they also have the empathy to bring other people with them, understanding other people, being compassionate with other people in the process. And those are the two things that sometimes we overlook together because they're not contradictory. Yeah. Ego drive as well as empathy go a long way in a salesperson's success.
You know, I just want to hop on because, you know, you and I, our backgrounds with Ziglar and how much we've learned from Mr. Ziglar. And, you know, people don't realize that, like I was saying, the nuggets that he put into my head. But I remember the day, and it's the same day I met you. And thank God I did. It was back in 2004. And I was walking down the hallway, but I had read and listened to Zig for so long that I walked down the hall and I walked up to him and I said, Zig, I feel like I've known you forever. I want to thank you for changing my life. And he looked at me and said, I didn't change your life. I gave you some principles that you applied and they happened to change your life. And from that day on, I realized the power of, like you said, humility, right? Yeah. He could have said, yeah, look at me, look what I've done. No, he was like, I gave some principles, you applied them, you changed their life. So let's get into selling a little bit for the serious salesperson. What I wanted to, you know, we often talk about listen so they can talk, right? And talk so they will listen. Let's touch about that a little bit because it's very, very important to become, as I like to say, a much better listener, that we're asking questions so we can find out about the other person. What are your thoughts on that so we can put some nuggets out there?
If you want the customer to listen to you, give them something to listen to.
Okay.
And that makes sense. That goes right along with listen so they'll talk, talk so they'll listen. When we converse with people, we ask questions. How you doing? How was your weekend? Those are very normal. When we get into a selling situation, oftentimes we're asking surface questions and not high gain or high impact questions. The ability to ask those questions is important, but the ability to listen for two things, Tommy. Number one, listen for content. Number two, listen for intent.
Mm,
And we both know
that's
content
fantastic.
of the words, intent is the meaning behind the words. When somebody throws you an objection, is there an emotion behind the objection, or is it all rational and logical? It helps to know that when you're overcoming objections. How
Yeah.
how emotionally tied are they to that objection? You've got to listen for that.
Yeah, I like it. And I like what you just said. You know, when we get into a listening situation, most people, when they struggle with sales, the main challenge is, you know, the old phrase is show up and throw up, right? We've heard it a million times. Maybe someone hasn't, but most people get so, you know, nervous and so frightened because they feel like they're doing something to someone, but they fall into a telling situation instead of a listening situation. Let me tell you how great I am. Let me tell you how great my product is. Look at me, the great I am. Boy, oh boy, you know, it slices, it dices, it's a, you know, it's a dessert topping. It's got it all, right? So that's what we're used to thinking about when it comes to a sales situation. But realistically, and I think we can touch on this a bit, one of the lessons I learned is when I go into a sales presentation, I'm looking to help someone. And the first question I say is, how can I help you? And the reason we're there in the first place is to gather information. Would you
Right.
agree with that?
Yeah, whoever has the most information has the most influence.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
to do that, you've got to have a method where you gain information, but it's not gaining information then going to the next question, gaining information, going to the next question. It's taking what was said initially, anticipating how that impacts people, that particular prospect, and listening to a greater depth. I had a great lesson, Tommy, a couple of months ago. One of my customers in St. Louis, Alicia, taught me a great lesson. She said, when I work with my salespeople, I don't have talking points. I have listening points. I
Ah,
went, whoa. That's a paradigm shift. Hold on, exactly.
that's a good
Light
shift.
bulb, light bulb. And Alicia was, and she's a young lady who hadn't been in sales that long, but she's got it.
Yeah.
Talking points versus listening points. So
Well,
important.
let me tell you right there, talking points versus listening points. There is the nugget. What are you listening for? You know, what are you there? How is your service or your product going to help them by listening, finding out what their challenges are? If you go in and you have no idea, you can't sell to someone if you don't know what their needs are, or more importantly, what their wants are, right? What do they need to change? What do they want? Things going on like that. But let's talk about this a little bit. We're going to just for a minute. We were talking about golf, right? And to simplify the golf game, you know, you love baseball. I know you talked about Willie Mays over the years. And on the same note, Joe Morgan, they used to ask him why he was such a great hitter. And I love Joe Morgan. What a great baseball player. And he used to say, I see the ball, I hit the ball. Right. So I look at that and I go, okay, that's pretty easy, except, you know, it's coming in 100 miles an hour. But so he's got some superpowers to see it. But the same thing with golf. You know, I've heard people say to simplify the game of golf is I get up there, I hit it. And if I can find it, I hit it again. Right.
Right.
So the secret to that is try and keep the ball where you can find it. Simplify the game. You know, in the trees, if you hear wood, it's not going to work. So let's talk about, or wrap it up with a little bit on a couple of tips on how we can simplify the sales process and make it become ours.
First of all, the philosophy has to be, I'm in a listening mode. The philosophy has to be, I've got a helpful intent.
Mm.
If the helpful intent is there, you'll find techniques to move to the helping stage.
Wow.
But one of the great gut check questions, and this is a nugget that came to me later in my sales career. When you leave the first interaction with your prospect, who knows more about whom? So if I'm talking to you for the first time, Tommy, and I get in my car and I drive away, or I get off the phone and hang it up, I've got to ask myself, do I know more about the prospect, or does he know more about me?
Yeah.
Now, some cases may be a little bit of an exception, but the vast majority of the cases in an initial discovery call or qualification segment of the sales process, I want to know more about the other guy.
Yeah.
I can always talk about myself. I don't know enough about him. So if I leave with knowing more about the prospect than he does about me, I think I've positioned myself for the next call.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. And the answer is most prospects will try and get as much information out of you, which I always find fascinating. So they're really trying to figure out what they can do by finding out more about you. So really, I'm going to leave it with this. I think the nugget for today is when you're going out in the sales process and you're with a prospect, stay in listening mode. That's a great way. So stay in listening mode. So right questions, get right answers, but listen more than you talk. I think you'll get better results. All right, Brian, I'm going to go out and work on my golf game because it truly, truly needs work. But
yeah, I understand, Tom, you stand too close to the ball after you hit it. That's a rumor about you.
I like that. Well, listen, always good to see you, and enjoy the week. I'll catch up with you next week.
Good luck. Good selling.
Thanks, man. Take care.